Hey trans youth, I'm terribly sorry this is going to be a very difficult and mangled video or whatever because we have several things to talk about on the agenda, okay? I want to talk about the topic that we had, which was based upon religion, whereas everyone was actually very, very good for the most part. We did have several people just fire off cliches and start hurting other people. I remember that there was a very heated discussion about atheism versus agnosticism, and honestly, I'm not really too sure that was a good idea. However, for the most part, I do want to say that everyone was really nice and really kind, and it was an intellectual conversation. And that's what I was hoping for. Everyone wasn't stepping on each other's toes because religion is, in fact, a very difficult topic, but it's also something that is very, very strong according to transgendered people. You can identify as a Christian, but with being transgendered, clashing with it, there are certain views that are going to change. That is the same thing with a lot of other religions, and as a Unitarian Universalist, I have to say that religions should be malleable, and in many cases they unfortunately aren't. So in conclusion, I do want to say thank you very much for everyone just being very kind to each other and courteous. Having said that, I want to move on to agenda number 2, talking about a position open on Trans Youth Channel. We have a vlogger position open. If you are interested about it, read it down here in the description. I'm not going to say everything because I'm pretty tired of saying things like this actually, but if you just want to be a wild card or a trans youth vlogger, we have positions open for both. Down here in the descriptions is how it exactly works. Basically just a rough start, just send a resume into transyouthchannel@gmail.com. More information below. Then, after that, I want to talk about topic number 3, which is actually missing last week, which is going to make this video very, very difficult, and it's going to be mangled, and it's going to be weird. So we have 2 topics this week, and 2 topics is basically because last week we were talking about something that I really want to talk about, which is an LGBT specified school. And then this last coming week, I wanted to do something, but I unfortunately had a little too much going on to make a video, and that was for National Coming Out Day. And National Coming Out Day was on October 11th, whereas I want to make some very important changes to that because we as transgendered people do have a very harsh time when we are coming out, and many of our viewers on YouTube are not out yet. It's actually a fairly large percentage of our subscribers that are not yet able to come out, and it's really good to be able to reach that portion of our community because we hardly ever get to reach that portion of that community, and we at YouTube are very gifted on that one. So what I want to do is just put in my 2 cents about National Coming Out Day, and I want to make the topic a little bit more about bullying because we actually received some questions for that, but I want to toss a spin on that. We at Trans Youth Channel are actually really, really cool as far as bullying goes because the majority of us are very strong and resolute in our transition. I personally pass really well, and I'm Caucasian, so I don't really get much bullying in any way, shape, or form. So I want to talk about how we deal with other people being bullied. Our friends, our family who's in a high school getting bullied. We're not able to meet the bully, and we're not able to meet the people who are allowing for that bullying. All we have is the person being bullied. So how do we handle that situation? How do we handle a person being bullied? And along with that, just to fuse the second topic being the schools, I want to talk about whether or not that school would actually encourage or discourage that bullying. Do you think that bullying is completely going to stop at that LGBT school? And when it comes to someone who I have personally had coming to you saying they've been bullied, saying they're afraid for their lives, saying they're suicidal even, I don't really know how to handle that situation because the majority of the time I'm halfway across the country and I'm talking to them via Facebook message. So what I tend to do and think is give them resources, give them close-up resources. I Google map their town, and then I Google map the nearest LGBT center. Then I'll Google map any of the suicide awareness campaigns that they have maybe near them. I'll tell them to go to the school, ask them. I, for one, strongly encourage action toward the environment that is allowing for the bullying. If you guys aren't aware, there is a guy named Jamie Nabozny who actually published a documentary called Bullied, whereas he sued his school because his school did nothing about him being bullied, and he won. It was amazing. It was a landmark case. And now he's going all over the country talking about being bullied and how to prevent that bullying in your school. And I completely agree with it. The environment is a significant part. So you need to get your parents involved, get your school involved, get your friends involved, get everyone involved. Tell them that you are being bullied by this person and allow them to provide an intervention for that bullier, because I feel that in many cases a bullier may not understand the extent to which they are hurting you, and in that case it's really difficult to come up and actually tell them, hey, this is what you're making me feel like when you do this, and I really need you to stop it. And in the case that they are in fact doing it on purpose and they are in fact obstinate, it's probably a time for them to talk to you. Having said that, bullying is a very natural circumstance. It's something that people do in order to make themselves higher than other people. And it's a hierarchical thing. It's showing that dominance so that they feel better about being dominated. But in many cases, it could just be a person who wants to make sure that difference is shown because it's against their religion, it's against their creed, it's against what they have always believed. Sometimes it's just bullying to preserve their belief by knocking you down a peg. So, will you still find those people in an LGBT school, specified school? We're just going to move on to the second topic. I do agree with Brie a lot when it comes to the school, and I agree with LGBT schools just as long as they're not warping history. I understand that they're talking about from an LGBT perspective, and unfortunately we are a very young community as far as being out and concrete as an ideal, but there were gay people in Rome. It is stretching that far back. So it's really nice to hear about that perspective, but I once again am very cautious about them warping that history and making the scope of history all about being LGBT. It's not good for people to be learning about all of that. Having said that, do I think that bullying is going to stop in an LGBT exclusive school? I honestly really don't. I feel that having that environment where people will be more open-minded and more understanding toward one another is a really good idea, and it will significantly reduce the bullying. But the bullying is still a natural part of being in school, and unfortunately that has to be fought on various different grounds. You require intervention, you require a change in the environment, you require a change in the person, and you require a change in the bully. And not all of that is going to be fixed simply by removing yourself and putting yourself into a special LGBT or Black or any other kind of minority specialized school. Also, people are bullied for every difference, and unfortunately the differences in multidimensional people, which every single person is infinite. You can't put someone on a definitive piece of paper, no matter how big that piece of paper is. So essentially, in conclusion, I do agree with the LGBT school as long as it's not reducing the amount of education you get on a worldly basis, such as talking about all different walks of life instead of specifying it to LGBT. I do not feel that it's really going to completely solve the bullying problem, but I do feel that it's going to mitigate it quite a bit. And I also feel that bullying in and of itself is a natural concept that is going to keep happening until we are able to overpower our love of power with the power of love. And I don't remember who said that as a quote.